Okay, everybody, here we are with multi-award winner Michael Granberry from this year's festival. And your film, which I found out after I recorded my little awards thing, is pronounced Lês Betes, correct?
Very well. Great.
So are you French?
No, I'm not, as a matter of fact. And the title of the film is one of the curious things about it, because the whole process sort of started very unconventionally. I was looking for something to do in my spare time in January of 2020, not realizing how much spare time I was going to have in just a couple of months.
Why? What happened?
Well, long story, but the idea that I came up with was after a number of years working in stop motion animation, I had accumulated just dozens and dozens of stop motion puppets for projects that, for one reason or other, never wound up getting filmed. But the puppets were made, and so I keep such things around in case you're ever going to use them. And I just had so many of them, and most of them were about 20 years old, and the materials they're made of disintegrate over time. It's just foam rubber and latex and things. And so it's just all falling apart. And so I decided it was time to use them or throw them away. And so I decided to just put them all in a film together and see what would happen. And I did.
All of them in a film together. I was so
Yes.
impressed by, we all grew up on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and so forth. And there's one or two characters moving around in a scene, but you literally had like dozens of characters all doing different things. And, are you a filmmaker as well, or just do stop motion?
I have made a few films of my own, but I work in stop motion. I work on a lot of television and feature films and web series and things like that. So filmmaking is something I've been doing for a long time, but my specific lane is stop motion. I just absolutely love it.
Well,
Yeah.
so you know what it takes to do it. So why in the hell would you do so much of it? It had to have been your biggest challenge ever.
It was something else. I mean, for one thing, the puppets, because I made them, most of them, towards the very beginning of my career. I didn't really know how to make puppets well. I just knew how to make them as best I could. And the idea was just sort of, since there was no script, I just literally laid them out on the table and just said, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I know how that sounds, but our brains just sort of put together these little, associations. And as I was just looking at them, like sort of relationships and power structures sort of naturally emerged. And the whole idea was just whatever ideas these puppets give visually, just try to do that. And if I can't do it, I can't do it. And as it went on and on, it just got bigger and more elaborate. And because I was sort of improvising this film, it was more or less filmed in sequence, which is a very inefficient way to work, because you might tear a set down and then realize you need it again for another shot. So it was slow going.
Well, how long did it take you from start to finish to do this? All 4 years, the last 4 years?
It was 4 years with breaks in between, because once I got about the first 2/3 of it done when we were in pandemic lockdown, and then the last sort of the big finale scene, which ends in just a massacre and an inferno and everything going crazy. All of that was kind of done with breaks for work overtime once we were allowed to go back to work. And it really I really kind of finished up all the animation just very early this year, like I believe it was around March 1st. And that's when I gave the film over to my composer friend and my visual effects friend to add a little bit of cleanup to it. And they did their work so quickly compared to how long it took me to do my work. It was kind of shaming, but that's the nature of the beast.
So you did all the animating yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was based on their credits and everything. That's what I vision. That's why you got the Indie Auteur Award, because you did it all for this.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, and it's I mean, making stop motion is an achievement in itself, and for you to do all of it and so much of it was just astounding. And so
Mm.
back to the title, the bet means the animals,
Yeah, it means the beasts
the
in
beast.
French. And I actually did not know what that meant. I was sort of kicking around different ideas for names, and I know how this sounds, but just started to hear these words, Lês Betes, just like coming into my head, and I didn't know what it meant. But I looked it up, and I was like, I didn't even know what that little symbol was, the little E circumflex with the little,
Yeah,
on. But I just kind of found it, and I was like, oh, the beasts, and I thought, well, that's kind of a nice sounding title. It's a little more mysterious and flows off the tongue better than just the beasts.
oh,
And interestingly, the one of the inspirations for this film was this animator from the 1930s and 40s named Ladislas Starevich. And he was originally from Poland. His family immigrated to Paris during World War II, or before World War II, I believe it was. And a lot of his greatest films had French names, and of course, because that's where he was making them. And so I think part of it was maybe he was like yelling at me from beyond the grave, Lês Betes, Lês Betes, you idiot, call it Lês Betes, you know.
well, it
But
certainly does all come together.
it
Uh,
it did it was just I tried to just sort of keep my ideas out of it and let it just be just sort of inspiration driven, and it turned out much more interesting than anything I could have come up with consciously, and way more interesting than any of the ideas for the projects that those puppets had originally been built for.
that's a great that, I'm a filmmaker myself, so I'm a pack
Yeah,
rat insofar as, holding on to props and things, and you kept
sure.
all these around knowing someday they were gonna come back to haunt you.
Yes.
And it is great that, it's a dialogue-less film, so this can play all over the world, and I think you're gonna have a great run on the festival circuit.
Thank you. So the response has been pretty good, and I did realize as that was coming together, it's like I don't think there's going to be much of any sound at all. And when I gave the film to my composer, I had no sound effects on it whatsoever. I was just, let's just do it just with music,
Yeah.
and see if there's places. Once the music comes back to me, I think that's going to inform where sound effects need to go. So it was kind of like, here's the visuals, now do the music, and then come back to me and I'll just pepper it in with some little sounds here and there. And most of the sounds that I missed were not like big bombastic sounds, but like just little subtle sounds like rustling paper, or the wind, rustling through branches or things like that. So that's not the normal way I would have thought I would work either.
The black and white nature, the music almost exclusively playing it gives it a very silent era film feel to it, and especially with the stop motion animation, it just, like I said, it all comes together. You are well deserving of several awards, and like I said, I think it's gonna do gangbusters, and you're gonna. Do you want to travel, like to go to festivals and see this play around the world? Do you have time for that sort of thing? You sound like a busy
I,
person.
I think I'll have time. I know I did book one trip so far, and it just reminded me, oof, traveling is expensive. So I'm gonna have to be sort of very selective.
Yes, submission fees are also expensive.
Yes.
But yeah, you can play. It's definitely got a sci-fi fantasy slant, which is why you submitted our festival. But it can play in any festival. it doesn't matter the type of genre. It's just so darn interesting. And yeah,
Wow.
you know,
Well, I hope you're very right about that. I did sort of channel, most of my energy towards, fantasy and horror and sci-fi festivals, because that's what I love.
mhm,
And I just thought, well, I'm going to throw this at my people first,
yeah, no.
because I figured there's always room at the party for one more creepy stop motion cartoon. Why not?
That's kind of why I started this festival. Is there weren't enough sci-fi fantasy festivals, which is near and dear to my heart as
Yeah.
well. I grew up on the original Star Trek, and
Oh, same.
exactly. So we're two of a kind, but you do stop motion, and I have no idea how to do that.
Well, it's one of those things that if the bug bites you to do it, you're kind of like stuck for life. And when I was about 8 years old, my dad took me to go see a re-release of The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which had the great Ray Harryhausen's work. And
Yep.
I mean, I think my dad knew what was going to happen. I think he saw something in me that, reminded him of himself when he was my age, and that's when he had seen that film, so he knew very well what he was probably getting me into.
Oh yeah.
So it's been a wonderful journey and incredibly challenging, but always wonderful.
Yeah, I grew up on Harryhausen stuff and Clash of the Titans, and
Oh yes.
there's been a steep drop off in stop motion, so it's great to see it's still alive.
Yes, it's like the cockroach of animation. It's like you can't quite ever get rid of it completely. It keeps coming back.
Well, I hope not. What do you have plans for the future, or you got to make another one? Not maybe not at this extravagant of a level, but more stop motion for yourself.
I hope so. One of the things that when when you sort of get into the bloodstream of professional stop motion, as getting hired and such like that, you're sort of always, keeping your antennas up for jobs, because there's not a ton of jobs out there, but there's not a lot of people applying for those jobs. But the people who are applying are all very good, and so it's sort of a there's a if there's work, you better work, because you don't know, there could be a long period between jobs, if projects just aren't available. So having the time to set aside for projects can be difficult unless you have the means to just sort of take time off. That's one of the reasons that this film, it's only 12 minutes long, but it did take 4 years, because there were jobs in there, and I have to work when there's work. But
Yeah.
I know people who've gone 10, 16, 20 years to make a film because of that same reason. So I did pretty well, all things considered, time wise.
Oh yeah, and you don't see too much of it at the feature length level anymore. I would imagine more of your work comes from commercials.
There's a lot of commercials, television work. I'm working on a preschool television show right now. And that's been like a 10-month process, because it's a lot of episodes. The episodes are all around the length of Labette, and
Oh,
so but we have a large crew, working, full time. But yes, commercials are great things. And interestingly, there's other people sort of in yours and my peer group, filmmakers who have this great nostalgia for stop motion animation, and a lot of them are horror filmmakers. And so every once in a while I'll get a call from one of my friends in the horror community saying, hey, we've got this little special effects scene in our live action film that we really want to do in stop motion. And so I, get calls like that. The horror, fantasy, sci-fi community has been my lifeline many times. When I'm in between jobs, somebody will call me up and say, "Hey, I got this idea," and I was like, "Let's do it." So
oh yeah,
it's always nice to get those little presents that you're not expecting.
oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I know we probably have a lot more in common. We could talk for hours, but this is
Probably.
we're gonna limit it to just the festival awards. And congratulations, you won I forget all what you won, but Indie on Tour, the Judy Lawrence Memorial Award. You had a very nice thing to say about your mom and my mom in your email.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, they're both looking down and they're happy to see us together talking and chatting about your amazing film.
Undoubtedly. Well, thank you so much for having me. And really, I'm just so filled with gratitude for those very unexpected recognitions. Thank you so much.
Sure, well deserved, and we hope to see more of your work in the future.
I hope to submit to your festival again as soon as I can.
In the next 4 years.
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. Bye.